I never imagined my own son would stand in front of me like a stranger. The room felt smaller that night, as if the walls themselves were closing in, trapping me in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. He stood near the table, his jaw tight, his eyes avoiding mine at first. But when he finally looked at me, there was something in his gaze I had never seen before, something cold, distant, almost unrecognizable. In his hand, he held a belt. Not loosely, not casually, but tightly wrapped around his fist as though it gave him strength. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat louder than the last, echoing in my ears. I searched his face for even a flicker of the boy I had raised, the one who used to run to me with scraped knees and tearful eyes. But he was gone. In his place stood a man I didn't know. "Sign it," he said, his voice low but firm, like he had rehearsed those words over and over again. My hands trembled as I looked down at the papers on the table. Power of attorney. My name was already printed there, waiting for my signature as if it were just a formality. As if my life could be handed over with a single stroke of a pen. I swallowed hard, trying to steady myself. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he tightened his grip on the belt. Behind him, she stood, my daughter-in-law, watching everything with a calm, almost amused expression. Her arms were crossed, her posture relaxed, as though this was just another evening for her. "Because it's time," she said, stepping forward slightly. "You can't manage things anymore." Her words stung more than I expected. I had managed this house, this family, for decades. I had built everything they now wanted to take from me. "That's not true," I said, forcing strength into my voice. My son's expression hardened. "Don't make this difficult," he said. "We're trying to help you." Help. The word felt twisted, wrong. My eyes moved between them, trying to understand how things had gotten to this point. When had love turned into control? When had trust turned into fear? "I won't sign," I said finally, the words coming out stronger than I felt. For a moment, there was silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Then my son took a step closer. The belt shifted in his hand, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "You don't have a choice," he said. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just pressure. This wasn't just manipulation. This was something far worse. This was betrayal. The house I had once filled with laughter now echoed with tension. Every corner held memories, birthdays, celebrations, quiet evenings spent with family, but now those same walls seemed to watch me in silence, unable to protect me from what was unfolding. I sat alone in the living room the next morning, staring at the same papers that had been forced in front of me the night before. They had left them there intentionally, as if constant exposure would wear me down. As if I would eventually give in just to make the pressure stop. My hands rested in my lap, but they didn't feel like my own. Everything felt distant, unreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. Footsteps echoed from the hallway, and I stiffened. My daughter-in-law entered first, her expression perfectly composed. She carried a cup of tea, placing it in front of me with a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You should drink something," she said softly, as though she cared. I didn't touch it. My son followed behind her, his presence heavier, more suffocating. He didn't sit. He stood, watching me the same way one watches a problem that needs to be solved. "Have you thought about it?" he asked. I looked up at him slowly. "I already told you my answer." His jaw clenched. I could see the frustration building inside him, but there was something else too, impatience, maybe even desperation. "You're being unreasonable," he said. "This is for your own good." "No," I replied quietly. "This is for yours." The words hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. My daughter-in-law let out a small laugh, shaking her head. "You really don't get it, do you?" she said. "Everything will be easier once you stop resisting." Easier for them, she meant. Not for me. Never for me. I felt a surge of anger rise within me, cutting through the fear that had settled in my chest. "You think I don't see what you're doing?" I said, my voice gaining strength. "You think I don't understand?" My son stepped closer, his expression darkening. "Enough," he said. "We're not here to argue." But that's exactly what this was. Not a discussion, not a negotiation, an attempt to take control of everything I had left. I looked at him, really looked at him, and tried to find the son I once knew. But the more I searched, the more I realized he had changed in ways I could no longer reach. When did this start? I asked, my voice breaking slightly. When did I become someone you needed to control? He didn't answer. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. Over the next few days, their behavior grew more calculated, more suffocating. It wasn't just about the papers anymore. It was about control in every sense of the word. My phone disappeared first. I searched for it quietly, pretending not to notice at first, but deep down I knew exactly what had happened. When I finally asked, my daughter-in-law smiled as if it were a simple misunderstanding. "You must have misplaced it," she said lightly. But I saw the glance she exchanged with my son, and I understood. They didn't want me reaching out to anyone. They didn't want anyone knowing what was happening inside this house. Meals became controlled as well. Food was brought to me at specific times, portions measured, conversations limited. It felt less like care and more like confinement. I tried to leave the house one afternoon, hoping to clear my mind, to feel even a moment of freedom. But my son stopped me at the door. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Just outside," I replied. "I need some air." He shook his head. "Not today." The finality in his voice left no room for argument. I stepped back slowly, the realization sinking in deeper than before. I wasn't just being pressured, I was being isolated. That evening, I overheard them talking in the next room. Their voices were low, but not low enough. "She'll give in eventually," my daughter-in-law said. "They always do. Always." The word echoed in my mind, chilling me to the core. How many times had she done this before? How many people had she manipulated, controlled, broken? My son didn't respond right away. When he did, his voice was quieter, almost uncertain. "What if she doesn't?" he asked. There was a pause, and then her voice again, colder this time. "Then we make sure she has no choice." I felt my breath catch in my throat. That was the moment everything became clear. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't a phase or a misunderstanding. This was a plan. And I was at the center of it. I stopped trying to reason with them after that. It became clear that logic had no place in their decisions. Every word I spoke was twisted, every attempt at resistance met with more pressure. The house felt smaller each day, the air heavier, as if even breathing required effort. Nights were the worst. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I replayed everything over and over in my mind. Where had I gone wrong? What had I missed? How had my own child become someone capable of this? One evening, my daughter-in-law sat across from me, her expression unusually relaxed. "You know," she said casually, "this could all be over by now." I didn't respond. I had learned that silence was sometimes the only form of resistance I had left. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes locking onto mine. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," she continued. "Why suffer when you can just let go? Let go." As if everything I had built, everything I had protected, meant nothing. As if my life could be reduced to a signature on a piece of paper. I looked at her steadily. "You think this is about suffering?" I asked quietly. "This is about dignity." Her smile faltered for just a moment, but it returned quickly, sharper than before. "Dignity doesn't matter when you have nothing left," she said. But she was wrong. It was the only thing I had left. And I wasn't going to give it up. The tension reached its peak that night. I could feel it in the air, thick and suffocating. My son entered the room with the same belt in his hand, his expression set, determined. There was no hesitation this time, no attempt at persuasion. "This is the last time I'm asking," he said. The papers were placed in front of me once again, the pen resting on top like a final demand. My hands trembled, but I kept them at my sides. "No," I said. The word felt heavier than anything I had ever spoken. His grip on the belt tightened. "Don't make me do this," he said, but there was no real warning in his voice, only inevitability. My heart pounded as he stepped closer. I closed my eyes, bracing myself for what might come next. And then, the sharp sound of the doorbell cut through the silence. It rang once, then again, louder this time. My son froze. My daughter-in-law frowned, clearly irritated. "Who could that be?" she muttered. The tension shifted instantly, like a storm pausing mid-strike. I opened my eyes slowly, my breath uneven. Something about that sound felt different. Unexpected. Important. My daughter-in-law walked toward the door, her movements quick, impatient. "I'll handle it," she said. I remained where I was, my heart still racing, a strange feeling rising within me. Hope. The ringing continued, echoing through the house as if demanding attention. My daughter-in-law reached the door and paused for a brief moment, smoothing her expression before opening it. From where I sat, I couldn't see who was outside. All I could hear was the faint sound of voices, muffled and unclear. My son stood still, the belt still in his hand, his focus now completely shifted. "Who is it?" he called out. There was no answer. Just a brief silence that seemed to stretch endlessly. Then the door opened fully. And everything changed. The scream came suddenly, sharp and filled with raw fear. It cut through the air like a blade, sending a chill down my spine. I had never heard anything like it before, not from her, not from anyone. It wasn't anger. It wasn't frustration. It was pure, uncontrollable terror. My son dropped the belt, his composure breaking instantly. "What happened?" he shouted, rushing toward the door. I remained frozen, my body unable to move, my mind struggling to process what was happening. The sound of footsteps filled the hallway, followed by unfamiliar voices, firm, authoritative. The kind of voices that didn't ask for permission to enter. And in that moment, I knew. Something had changed. Something beyond their control. 2 officers stepped into the house, their presence commanding and undeniable. Behind them stood a young girl, her face pale, her eyes filled with tears. My granddaughter. She looked at me, her expression breaking as soon as our eyes met. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. The officers scanned the room, taking in everything, the tension, the fear, the evidence that had been hiding in plain sight. My son tried to speak, to explain, but his words came out disjointed, unconvincing. My daughter-in-law stood near the door, her earlier confidence completely gone, replaced by shock and panic. The truth was no longer hidden. It was right there, exposed for everyone to see. Everything unraveled quickly after that. Questions were asked, statements taken, the reality of the situation laid bare piece by piece. My son's attempts to justify his actions fell apart under scrutiny, his confidence replaced by desperation. My daughter-in-law's carefully constructed control vanished entirely, leaving behind nothing but fear. I sat quietly, watching it all unfold, feeling a strange mix of emotions, relief, exhaustion, disbelief. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't alone. For the first time, someone had seen what was happening. And they had stepped in. The house grew quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. It wasn't heavy or suffocating. It was calm, almost peaceful. My granddaughter sat beside me, holding my hand tightly, as if afraid to let go. I was scared, she admitted softly. But I knew it wasn't right. I looked at her, my heart aching and healing at the same time. "You did the right thing," I said gently. She leaned closer, resting her head against my shoulder. And in that moment, I realized something important. Even in the darkest situations, there is always a chance for light to break through. Sometimes it comes from the most unexpected places. And sometimes it comes just in time.